Hello, guys. We have Michael Kopf here. It's Miss Loisel, and this is my new channel. And thanks for joining. And I believe it's on his channel as well. So, for all of you that don't know, Michael is a paranormal investigator, speaker, podcaster, vodcaster, and also a Reiki master, and so much more. So, we're going to get in it today. So, for all the people that don't know you, Michael, can you tell a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I grew up with parents who gave me the freedom to decide what path I wanted to follow in life, and so I decided to follow the path that was not the dogma of religion, and grew up in by choice in the metaphysics, and had some experiences throughout my life. Like I would, as a preteen slash teenager, had shadow beams that were around the house, and I would just play like almost like a game of tag with them, because when you deal with shadow beams, they're out of the corner of your eye, and as you may be familiar, when you turn and look at them, they disappear. So it was like the game of how close will I let them get to me before I turn and look to say nope, not this time. And so I just had that. I never felt any danger or anything from them. I kind of grew up around spirits. I could sense them being around, and had some experiences where one example is when my parents and I were driving through Vicksburg, the battlefield park. I would sit there, and all my senses would all of a suddenly be engaged as if I was there in the 1860s
Wow.
during the battle. And I'm like, I could smell the gunpowder, I could smell the blood, I could hear the footsteps, I could, it's like I could even see somewhat of what was going on, who was moving where, who was stationed where. And if you've ever been to the battlefield, you'll see like they have cannons placed in some spots, and little placards that'll say, "Oh, this happened here," but there's no like markers to where I could sit there and go, "Oh yeah, see this marker? This is where these people were." So it was like that was what was confusing to me, is I was seeing what looked like movement of soldiers in a line in the battle, and it was I described it as history coming alive. It's like I felt like I was, from my metaphysical background, I thought I was reliving a past life and just having memory of being there and seeing, and playing out the memory in my head. And I had a guest who was a doctor, I think a parapsychologist. I'm not sure what her field of study was, but she pointed out, if you have all your senses engaged in that moment, in that scenario, you have time traveled to that spot. And I was like,
So
that
you traveled.
apparently so, and I don't know how, and it kind of irritates me because I would love to do it again.
Oh, was it only that one time that it happened to that extent? Or did you have multiple times like this?
The other time that it happened is when I was touring the Yorktown Memorial Battlefield for the Revolutionary War. So it was kind of interesting that it was the Revolutionary War and Civil War, that it's like I could see what was going on and being put in that place. But that's the only time that's ever happened, those two times. And it kind of raises the question for me, is why those two times and those two locations
Right.
did it
It's
trigger? And
it's curious.
yeah, I can't help wondering if it is because past lives, was I there? And so my past life, because we all know time is not linear anymore. We know it's in a
Yeah.
loop. And so I'm wondering if my past self and my present self somehow collided, and that's what opened up this experience, is seeing everything through my eyes, but they weren't my eyes.
Do you think a spirit kind of showed it to you, or have you thought about seeing someone else? You mentioned you saw someone and they told you something about it, but have you thought about going under hypnosis or trying to learn more about it if these experiences seem like they stick out to you? So they seem pretty vivid. Do you think that maybe you could get some more answers somehow?
I might. It's just I don't like delving into like certain topics unless it feels relevant and I feel resonated to. And so those experiences stick out, true, but not to the extent that I'm like, oh, I need to go and get, answers. I want to know this or that. It's more
Right.
of, it sticks out because of the uniqueness of it and how it just happened. And it's nothing I did, it just unfolded on its own. And I don't know how to unfold it. And so if I was to do any like hypnotherapy or anything, it might be to try and figure out
Something
how
else.
can I use this again and
Oh,
start
okay.
being able to use it more, because I mean it's the amazing thing about it, and what those stick out to me more is because my parents being in the car hearing all of this, they were just like kind of somewhat appeasing me going through the park because I'm the one who has the history, love, and passion for it. And so I felt like they were just being the nice parents and saying, okay, we'll go through here so you can say you've been here. And
Oh,
then experiencing it that way, they were like, we need to do this more often.
oh, really? So they were very advocates about it.
Yeah,
How
that
old
they
were you?
they are great. They encourage me to do whatever, even if it's not something they agree with. Like, they're not exactly 100% fond of paranormal investigating, but they know it's my passion, so
Yeah,
they support me in doing it. They just,
that's excellent.
the one rule I have is don't bring anything home.
Right. You don't want to bring anything home. And how old were you when this first started happening? Were you a toddler or was it a little bit after that?
So my first experience actually happened when I was 2, but I don't have memory of it until I was preteen. And so as a teenager, experiences started flooding in, and I was starting to be able to make sense of what was going on and getting information to fill in blanks. And I'm one of those that I seek my own answers. I don't like other people like guiding me to answers or telling me answers. And so that might be another reason why I don't do the hypnotherapy so much, is I don't
It's
want to
not your
feel
thing.
suggested.
I see. I see. Fair enough. And in your website, Riding Through the Waves, the YouTube channel, you go over healing modalities. Can you talk a little bit about protection for those that are going through this in different things, whether it be a haunting, whether it be it could be a UFO, whether it be a past life, just that's getting to them, dimensional beings, just what protection methods and healing modalities can you talk about?
Sure. So protection wise, the number one protection I use is universal law, and it's something that's really easy, but a lot of people don't put a lot of credit to it. and don't have a lot of belief in it, and so it doesn't work. And it is a law that requires 100% belief and no doubt. And how it works is if I go into a space and I feel a spirit is wanting to, say, scratch me or take over my body, I invoke under universal law and say, you do not have permission to enter my body. You do not have permission to touch me. You do not have permission to go home with me. And under universal law, they have to abide by that because I say it with conviction. And what that means is, let's say you and I are on an investigation, and I go, "Hey, you have no permission to enter my space." They're gonna say, "Okay, we don't have permission. We're not entering this space." But if I go, "Well, you don't really, I think, have permission. I'm not sure I want that." They're going to be like,
Not
"Oh,
gonna.
this person's not invicting universal law. They are. We can totally go and touch or scratch or do whatever because there's so much wishy-washy doubt in the sentence that they're like, you're not invoking anything."
So
So
you
it's
say
like,
you mean it.
right, you have to stand in your power with them, and they respect that. And the thing that people have to understand is when you're invoking it, you're not invoking it for one side versus the other. You're invoking it for both sides. So, in essence, if you make the statement, okay, spirits, you do not have permission to be in my space like 3 feet around me, nothing is going to come around you for 3 feet. You could have a benevolent spirit that's wanting to give you a hug. They're going to be like, nope, we can't do it. You invoked a 3 foot radius. And so that's the one caveat to using universal laws. What you state is what you get. So you have to be
Mean it.
cautious because if you're wanting to like a hug from a benevolent spirit, or you're wanting, you think your loved ones are there and you're wanting to feel them around you, you got to let them through. You can't invoke universal law and say, nobody can touch me. And they go, well, I guess my parents or loved grandparents on the other side weren't there because I never felt them. Well, you told them not to touch you.
Right.
So that's where I say you got to be careful how you invoke it. And the one thing that you have to be mindful of is spirits can pose as loved ones, as children, or anything that may seem friendly because they're wanting to make contact just as much as we are. And so, one way I look at it is, so let me put it in this way. We talk, about ETs coming and star races and first contact, so to speak. Well, what's the first rule of first contact? You don't make contact with someone who's going to be a threat. You're not going to land and go, okay, I'm going to go say hi to these people, even though I know they're probably going to attack me. I'm going to be the benevolent one and make, the first gesture. No, they need to know who is going to be open and receptive and who's not. Well, how can they do that? I feel like they come and they pose as a loved one or as a kid or a spirit that just doesn't fit the surroundings. Like, if you think about it, if you're, say, Revolutionary War battlefield, and there's no homes around, and you have this little kid that's running around, and you're sensing this little kid. Chances are that little kid is not from that battle and is not from the land, and maybe an ET trying to see who will see and who will be open to communication, who will be respectful and kind versus who's
So,
going to be like, oh, curse you, demon, and you
yeah.
are, and lay in, all these negative connotations and feelings to it. And so that's a new thing that I'm like starting to look at with investigations is, maybe what we're looking at is not from around here.
So you think they're more ETs and UFOs and UAPs and things from out of this world and even under the water? So you think they're more stuff like that, or what are you talking about? These spirits?
I think they are star races that, visit us, and they've been visiting us for centuries. I mean, the native indigenous people have legends of, beings from the stars as long as they can remember. And I don't think it's fair for us to go, well, you don't have any physical proof, you don't have any photos or any documentation of this, so we can't count that as actual evidence. I view it as that is more evidence than a photo ever would be, because this is a tribe. This is a culture that, has this story.
Yeah,
And the culture is not going to make up a story because you came by to go, hey, what's your guys' thoughts on ETs? And they're like, oh, geez, we were hoping you were going to ask us that. Here's our story. No, they're going to tell you their stories because that's their culture. Their culture is built on those stories.
right. It's something ingrained into the culture that is handed down from one generation to the next. And even if it's someone came out of the sea and taught this and that, then that's what it is. And that's what they teach. And
Right.
that's
And they open up so many mysteries of our world because I'm starting to point out with people on my show, Riding Through the Unknown, when we look outside and we look at the grass and we go, the grass is green. Why do we say the grass is green? Because somebody told us that's what the color green looks like, and we all just blindly agree that's green. We actually don't know that that's green. And somebody actually was pointing out to me the other day that goes, it's interesting that you say what, the color of grass being may not be green is they've actually studied it and said it's reflecting back every color but green.
exactly.
And so
Um,
I'm like, oh. So it's like it's not actually green. It's just what our eye filter sees. Okay. That frequency. And so when we look at it that way, um it opens up, your mind to go, what else around us is not exactly what we
see.
may think it is, and you start to question things. And where I'm going with this is I've always thought of the moon as being a object in space, not a celestial natural occurrence. And I based it on hearing that when we hit it with a missile, it dinged. And I go, anything that is a solid object does not resonate the tone of a bell. That's hollow.
That's
And
hollow.
so
Exactly.
I'm like, the moon has got to be hollow. So And we always hear of the dark side of the moon, and it's always on the other side of the moon. No matter what rotation we're in, we never see the dark side of the moon. If an object is free floating in space, in orbit with us, it would be spinning as well. So there would be no dark side. If we would be like, oh, well, in say 6 hours when it makes its rotation, the dark side will be the light side, and now the light side will be the dark side.
Makes sense.
But it doesn't happen. And the third thing that got my curiosity is, how many satellites do we have around the Earth to communicate?
A lot.
How many satellites are on the moon to communicate with shuttles that are going to the moon?
I'm not sure about that one.
0.
Okay. I don't see any around the moon, but I see a bunch in the sky that I used to never see. See all these dots and then they're
Yeah.
moving around and
So if we're sending astronauts to the moon, and we knew in the 60s when they're on the dark side we lose communication because we need line of sight, we would have to put a satellite up to communicate so we could always, in case something happens, be in communication. They have never put a satellite up.
Well, what about remote viewers and astral travelers and getting to the moon in some other way? I mean, who knows how they're traveling to the moon, but I think someone's traveling there. I mean, do you not?
You can go to the moon without a body experience,
Yeah.
and because your spirit form or energy form is at a different resonance than our physical form. So that is possible. And I know I've stepped foot on the moon and other planets and have gone off world, so to speak. But the interesting thing too is, the indigenous, as we're talking about them and their stories, there are stories of a moonless sky, and that there was like thousands of years where there was no moon. The moon just appeared to them. So
Well,
how, if they have been here since day one, would they have no moon if the moon has always been here and it was a part of the earth?
it's a satellite, isn't it? Like it
It's
came
yeah,
into our orbit at some point.
something had to place it there, in my opinion, because I mean, look at like asteroids. They hit the atmosphere and bounce off. They don't sit there and go, "Oh, hey, wait a minute, I think we hit our, sweet spot here. Let's just hover and circle around this planet. This looks nice." But they want us to believe that's what happened with the moon, that it just broke off and just stopped where it is and just became, in link with us. I don't think so. There's so many stories now when you put everything together that it's like, you know, I'm not sure, what purpose the moon really is. And a lot of people, when I talk to them about it, one thing they all say in common, and a common thread is, well, if you're military, you want a point where you have full vision of your target. Well, what's the moon? You have a perfect vision of the entire planet. So it makes sense, and you think about it that way, it's like, yeah, it's a great place to put a base. Hence, we have lunar bases.
Are we talking about secret space programs or are you
Uh,
talking about UFOs, lunar bases? Are you talking about humanoid lunar bases, or what are you talking about here?
So, in my opinion, this is where the secret space program and alien races kind of blurs, because we've all heard the stories of the 1940s with Antarctica, the Germans being there. and talking about, having, bases on the moon, a base on the moon. Well, if they were there on the moon, I feel confident we would be on the moon as well. And that's what some of the early missions were about, that nobody, that's like programs that launched. Everybody remembers them launching, but nobody ever remembers what they did. They're like, oh yeah, so and so went up into space and spent a few days in space and came back. Well, what was he doing? Nobody knows. Nobody ever thought to
It's a big
ask.
secret. It's a big
And
secret.
and so in my opinion, I'm like, that we were putting bases up there and putting things in operation, and I'm fully confident that Andromedans, Syrians, Draconians, everybody has bases, and they're all probably on the dark side, and that's why we're not allowed to communicate with the dark side. Is they don't want us to hear chatter that we shouldn't hear, and why astronauts only, if they do go to the moon, talk about being on the light side. They never talk about what they see on the dark side. And I feel very confident any astronaut that stepped foot on the moon did not stay on the light side the whole time. I
Really,
feel confident they seen stuff and
they ventured out.
interacted.
That would make sense. And you mentioned it being holographic. Well, have you heard about the holographic universe and how everything's, when it comes down to quantum science, that everything is holographic in nature, like light in general?
It does make sense when we think about when, say loved ones, you're, or a partner that you have a connection with, and they're traveling, and you can still feel them, and you can feel how their day is going. You can feel, if they're stressed. You can feel if they're doing okay, or you can. It's like when you're feeling like, oh man, I really wish this person was here. All of a sudden, you get this warm, cozy feeling, and you're like, oh, I'm so glad, I had this, and people just write it off as, just going, oh, you were just having a memory of so and so. I don't think so. I think quantum entanglement and quantum linkage is kind of the word I would use, is what makes that possible. Is you're actually connected on an energetic wavelength, and the quantum energies are able to reach vast spans to where
Like a
I
field,
could. Hmm?
like a field,
Right.
like
So,
through a field. The
like,
way
if you, yeah, so if you were in California and say I was in Australia, I could say, oh man, Loisel needs some energy. I could feel it and go, okay, here's a ball of energy. Here's my intention. I'm
I
sending it
think.
over. And then Loisel will go, oh man, I'm feeling tired, but oh, suddenly I got a second wind.
Yay.
And just think, hey, that must be something that kicked in. No, somebody else probably picked up on you needing energy and was able to transmit through the field energy to you instantly. And so that's actually been proven scientifically. Is, I believe it was Russia did a science experiment where they took two plants and they put one in one side of a lab and one in a different lab on a different end of the building, and they would light a fire underneath the leaf and it would register pain. Well, the plant that's on the other side of the building is also registering the pain, even though nothing's happening to it.
They did that with gasoline as well. They poured gasoline in one plant and they did an experiment and they studied their vibrations, their frequency, and it went nuts at the same exact time. Somehow they're capable of picking up the frequency and they know what's happening with this other plant because they've had time to bond and it's instantaneous. I mean, there's no time difference. It happens at the same moment
Right. And
that
my theory is if plant life is doing this and other animals are experiencing this, why would we not think we can experience this? Why do we think we don't have this? And it all comes down to I had to go and say, well, because we're taught we don't. That's the only reason is
it's
we're the
free.
only species that tells each other we're at the lowest of what our potential is instead of lifting up to a higher potential.
We're living on almost none of our brain's capability, and not only brain, but heart capability. I mean, we're at the tip of the iceberg. Like we're missing so much of it right now. And we need to use more than that 2% that they say we're using.
Not only that, but I like to point out, whoever or whatever created us, we are very sophisticated. So when I look at the genetics and they say, "Oh, we're a double helix with like 10 or 12 extra strands of deactivated junk DNA." Well, I don't sit there and go and say, "Oh, well, we got this junk DNA. Okay, well, okay." No, I look and go, as sophisticated as we are, I don't see the creators going, "Hey, what are we supposed to do with these extra strands of DNA?" Well, we'll just shove them in there. They'll never know. No, that would never happen. So there is a purpose for them. We just don't accept that there's a purpose for them because we are taught we're a double helix genetic being and we're operating, we're moving around, and so we don't question what could we be with more genetic activation. And that's the problem is we have lost our kind of sense of curiosity to
No.
go, what more can we be? And I mean, you look at Star Trek, The Next Generation, and I use TV shows sometimes to back up a point, and Data is an android. And what is his main deal in the show? He wants to be human. He wants to experience human emotions. He wants to understand what it means to be human. And in so many episodes, even though he's an android and has chips for emotions, but he doesn't always have it in there, you'll see when he doesn't have it in there, he does something and the crew goes, "You're more human than you realize. You're breaking your program." And he even says, "I've broken my positronic matrix. It's not limiting anymore. I'm able to go beyond." And all my brothers and sisters that are androids never did that. So I'm unique. And that's the human spirit. The human experience is to break the programming, to grow, to evolve, become more than just a shell going through motion. And so that's what I feel like we have lost and we're discovering again is our ability to look at ourselves and go, "You know what? I can't fly right now, but I know it's possible. and I feel it's possible. And so someday, maybe I'll get lucky and I'll do it. And we just, we are getting that back to where when we do figure out how to fly and not have to travel by plane or travel, by ship over a long distance, we could just go ourselves. We're going to be more open to it because we're finding that inner
Spark.
spark.
Yeah. Exactly. And you know what? You mentioned going on a boat. Well, the natives, when they first, only the shamans could see the boat because they never, most of them had never seen one. So they didn't know it existed. So they literally could not see it. So it makes you think with colors as well. I mean, that's totally different because that's like an absorption thing. Like we can see all of them except the one that's reflecting. But
Actually, it's not that different because everything we see is filtered. And so, like you're pointing out with the shamans being the ones that saw the boats and could identify with them so they could see them, my parents told
wow,
me a story when I was growing up from a spiritual teacher. And she said, we'll take 15 people in a room and we're going to have first contact with the UFO. We're going to see it. They're coming down, and ET is going to come out and talk to everyone. And so this craft starts to land in the parking lot. Five people who don't believe any of this walk outside and go, "There's nothing out here. There's nothing here." Five people that are skeptic walk out and say, I feel like there's something here. There's something fuzzy. I can't quite make it out, but maybe it could be.
yeah,
And the five believers walk out and are like, oh my God, this is the most amazing craft I've ever seen.
wow,
And look, the door's opening. Someone's coming out,
yeah.
And what's the one thing that was going on is everyone's beliefs and their perception determined their experience.
Like Dr. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. You're exactly describing that right now. His book, Biology of Belief, he talks about it, how it's literally in our DNA almost. Like it's biology, it's our perception that makes our beliefs.
It is. And when I go on paranormal investigations, one thing that I'm starting to figure out and really be attuned to is when we go into a location, the people who are in it just for the fame and to say, oh, I had this happen, I had that happen, will have their own experience. The people who are in it genuinely to make connection and get understanding will have a different experience. And so that's the main reason, in my opinion, why you could drop 30 people in a building and some of them will say nothing happened at all. Some of them will say, oh, I heard knocking, I heard a disembodied voice. Some will say, oh, I saw an apparition. Some will say, oh, I got scratched and pushed. Well, it's because their belief determined what was going to happen in that building to them. So that's what happened. They
Makes
brought it to themselves. And so it almost, in a way, makes me go and question, are we experiencing ourselves at these places? Because we're manifesting what's happening.
oh wow, yeah. That's a good way, a good point. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, because we don't see, I mean, we can see people in different clothing, but we're not only, sitting there saying, oh, well, this spirit, must be from the 1800s because look at the clothes. I am starting to also, though, look at, because we now have an understanding of timelines and parallel worlds running at the same time, that, there are places where the veil is thinner
Yeah.
between each. And so what we're seeing is someone in the 1700s or 1800s walking around, like, say, in a kitchen. That's their everyday life. We're seeing them doing their daily chore. We're not seeing the 1700s. We're seeing their current time, and they're looking at us and confused because we are looking
Out of it.
futuristic to them.
Yeah.
And so both of us, I feel like there may not be communication, because we're like, how do I communicate with you in a different dimension, different timeline?
It's interesting.
And they're looking at us and saying the same thing. It's like, what am I seeing?
Who
Who
are
are
you?
you?
What are you? Yeah. So with all of this, you said the veil's thinning, and before we got on camera, I you were mentioning this cool background. You just put it up for Halloween. Well, All Hallows Eve, November 1st, you and 2nd, you have All Saints Day and then All Souls Day, which are very different. And the veil's the thinnest. There's actually times on our earth where the veil's the thinnest. Do you get more activity during the times during Halloween and All Saints Day around this time where the veil's supposedly the thinnest on the calendar?
I don't know that that is something measurable, because this is an interesting aspect to bring up. And that is, when we're talking with loved ones on another dimension, their view of time is different than ours. That's why I always question when you'll hear in readings, they say, oh, the guides will say, oh, on January 1st of this year, this is going to happen at this time. And I'm like, really? Because you don't have a concept of time over there. So how are you grasping our sense of time so well? And that's just my thoughts of bringing into question, how
Time.
valid is this? Because we have a struggle with our own time, and you're over here talking, using it, and you don't have a sense of time. And so, yeah, but what I'm also wanting to point out is people have no knowledge of our original time. We were a 13-month year when we started. It
Based on the lunar
wasn't
calendar.
until the Julian calendar and Gregorian calendars came about that everything got convoluted, and we ended up with leap year to balance everything out, and 12 months became, this. And so that's why things don't line up like they used to. And so when you look at even the names of the month, January is a J. It should be in the middle. February, March, April was
Real
beginning.
to open.
August would
Okay.
be next. They were alphabetical.
Named after Augustus.
Some were named after Romans, and others were named just
Came
off
from the
of
Latin roots.
whatever they decided to name it for, because it was designed. And then when they mixed up all the months, I feel like it messed with the harvest, and it messed with planting and everything. And that's why lifetimes seem to be shortening. and we don't have the
Really?
900 years like they talk about in the Bible. Now
Oh,
we're
yeah.
lucky to make 100.
Right.
And what's the difference? Well, the calendar was much different then than it was now.
So it's
So
perspective.
the length of a year was not 365 days, every 4 years, 366. That's not an original year. We created that.
In recent times, it's changed.
So when I hear of, everybody looking and going, oh, we translated this like the Mayan calendar to be 2012 was supposed to be the end of a cycle. And they're like,
December
well,
21st.
it
Yeah.
didn't happen. We're like, and they go, well, one lady goes, well, we actually miscommunicated it and it's really 2087. And I was like, I don't think we missed anything. We're on a different calendar system than they are. So 2012 to them, maybe like 2312 to us because the years are different.
I
Our
see what you're saying. It
structure
doesn't line
is
up.
so we can't use our current calendar system to determine the past because they're different calendars. And and as confusing as time is and the number of days, why there's 28 in 1 month and 30 and 31, they're like, well, that was to balance out the fact they took out the 13th month. Well, if you think about it, that's like what, 5, 6 months of one extra day?
If you have the same days in the month, but if you're going by the lunar calendar of 28 days a month, then for 13 months, then it balances out
Right.
and
And
it makes
so,
sense.
but then here's the thing,
Yeah.
if we go on a lunar calendar, that only goes into effect when the moon arrived.
Right.
So in
That's
the time before the moon, there is no lunar calendar.
no.
So how do we determine time?
Well,
That's
time
the
must have been
thing.
different then.
It's like we can't go by solar because we don't know what an actual solar year is. We don't know what an actual lunar year is. We only go by what we assume and have been told it is. And for us, what's 365 days may actually be a quarter of a year in real time.
So what do you,
And
oh, sorry.
oh no, you go ahead.
So what do you think this all comes down to? Like these different timelines and time, and you're talking about holographic worlds. Like, what's the big picture here? Like, what's the ending point? What does it come down to?
I think it's all designed to raise our awareness to how much of our reality is a construct that we created and we all just agree to. And so when we talk about holographic worlds and other worlds out there, and, we see, species of ETs like Arcturians that, when people say, oh, they're like 900 years old. Well, that may seem really long to us, but to them, that may be like an infant
A blink of
coming
an eye. Yeah.
and learning and is on there and they're in school where we're thinking, oh my God, you have gone beyond our education system. You know more than we could possibly ever know. But we're basing that on the fact that they're 900. not based on what they actually have experienced and done. And so I think that's what's going on with our awakening is we're learning our age doesn't mean anything. Our
Chronologically.
experiences are what raises us to who and what we are, and to, we talk about going to fourth density, fifth density, or dimensional beings. Well, how did they do it? Well, they let go of whatever was holding them back. Well, what are we doing? We're holding on to, I'm a third dimensional being. I'm sitting in this chair right now because in my 3D world, this is a chair that's designed to be sat on. I'm looking at a screen that is a three-dimensional object that I have agreed to, that you've agreed to, is a visual communication screen.
Yes.
So when we take our minds and go, there is no screen, we're actually face to face, that's when we start to break free of the 3D and start to go and expand our awareness. And that's the growth I think that we're getting ready for is, we
To
talk about joining our galactic brothers, but as we are, we would never be able to join them because we we're the species that tells everybody else what to do, how they should operate. And so, do you really think, letting us loose in the galaxy is a really great thing right now? Not really.
maybe
We
not.
we can't even get along on our own planet. Imagine us
This
on a
moves.
galactic scale.
Yeah. Well, I think we are galactic in some way because of that holographic universe, that the universality of it all, the law of one, like as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without. And when
Right.
you're looking at the law of one, raw and everything, all is one, you know?
So
So aren't we already galactic beings in a way? I mean, like,
we are, but we haven't activated.
exactly. We're dormant, sleeping. And so what you're saying, the big picture is that we're spiritually awakening, and that's what we're trying to do is become galactic, get this galactic awareness. Is that what you're saying?
It is, and also the awareness of, and I actually was talking with a being. Uh, I don't honestly remember what race he was or she was, but this being and we were talking, and I said, we have these extra strands of DNA in us. And I know they're not just junk, just there to take up space. As we grow into our awareness of, fourth density, does a strand of that DNA come alive? And they said yes. So think about this. If we have two strands for 3D, if we activate four strands, that's 5D. If you go by that math, is a strand is a, or wait, hold on. Two is 3D. So if you activate four strands,
It'd be 5D.
5D.
Yeah.
And so that, activating those strands, we got to remember and learn, how did we do that? How do we do that?
We don't even know how to do that, most of us. I mean, you're
I
talking
think
about
that we
5D, what
do.
about 40? You skipped 40.
But that's the thing is I think that we do because how do
Those-
we function in the world that we live in now? We have our own we learn to walk on our own. We learn to breathe on our own. There are innate programs that run that we build upon. And so when we look at it that way, being 3D, we're born into a world where we learn to walk on our own, breathe on our own. What hurts us on our own, because, we have grown-ups that tell us, like, don't touch fire, it'll burn, but we're like, we don't have a concept of it until we actually touch the fire and are like, ow, that hurts. Okay, so that's burn. And
Experiences, personal
right.
experiences.
But what I'm saying though is it's built into the DNA. So the strands of DNA that are quiet or asleep, so to speak,
Deactivated.
in our body, we know how to activate them. We just don't, because I think we're so in the belief system of, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. I can't just flick a switch and be aha, done. So we have created these programs to make it hard to activate. And, you could almost say impossible. And the funny thing about impossible is, when you break it down into the two words that it is, do you know what impossible really says?
I am possible.
Yeah.
I'm
So
possible.
so think about it. When we say we can't, it's impossible for us to activate this. What we're really saying is, it is possible to activate this. We just need to open our awareness to, yes, we can. This is what it's going to take for me to do it. And that's the thing. What
Absolutely.
activates my DNA strands to advance me only works for me, I think. I don't think me going to, say, fourth density, I can turn around and go, okay, everybody, if you do this one simple task, you're going to be here. You'll be up here with me. Everybody has their own
Unique.
system to activate. And so that's where I think, when everyone's talking about, oh, we're activating DNA and through this coded messaging and tones through,
Sounds.
massive people hear the tones, but nothing happens. Not that it doesn't work, it's they may not be the tones for you.
Right.
And
That
even bigger is, you don't believe the tones are the
that's
right ones for you, so you've already set it up to where it won't work.
So for all you guys that want to learn more about Michael Kopf and setting up these tones to believe and to open your eyes, because he's done so many investigations and we barely scratched the surface of it. So I'd really like to maybe try to do this again so we could talk more, because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on. And wow, that what's funny is, in full transparency, this is not the conversation we had talked about we were going to have before we started this.
But we let it run, and so that was fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like.
I love these types where
Yeah.
it just goes.
Yeah, and time flew by really quickly because we're almost at that hour. So, can you tell people how to get a hold of you and your websites,
Sure.
energy that surrounds us, and where they can find you on each one, and the links?
So the energy that surrounds us is on Rumble. It's on YouTube. Are the main two places where it's also on Spotify. It shares with Writing Through the Unknown. And the reason I did it that way is, the energy that surrounds us was my first show. And then when my father passed away and transitioned to his next journey, I created a series that was something that we all were interested in, my mom, my dad, and I, but I never thought it would be what it is today. And so I created it as a sub series to the other show, just in case if it didn't go so well, I could just absorb into the show and do both. But it actually took off and has kind of become a entity of its own. And so I'm kind of surprised and proud of that at the same time. And every week when I do the shows, it's like I find disbelief that this is actually happening, and I'm like, I can't. It's like I'll activate the shows, and I'm like, I can't believe that people are tuning in and people are wanting to be guests on this, and these shows are
Taking off.
taking off because I'm like, I'm just me, just doing my thing like you're doing your thing. And it's just amazing to me how when you're authentic and just doing your thing, how you are wanting it to unfold, how the message gets out. And it isn't through gimmicks and, having certain aspects to the show that everyone's like, ooh, is this going to happen this time? Or, ooh, what's this going to be? It's like everyone just wants the information and
Right.
are drawn to that. And it's just authentic conversation. And I think that's what is, in my belief, the success to my shows is I just genuinely communicate, have conversation, and just ask questions that I don't always know where they come from, but at the end of the show, I feel like it's exactly what needed to come out. And so, whether it's a major success and thousands of views or 30 views, I don't base the success of my shows on that. I base it on how did I feel and how do I feel the information was presented. If I feel like in the best way, then that's all my job is done.
And can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure, I actually happen to have a copy right here. It's so the first book is Awakening My Journey into the Paranormal. And so in this book, I share my experience at two, growing up with the shadow beings that I mentioned, and some experiences that I had when traveling, and then how I got started in paranormal investigating and what investigations I've gone on and what happened. And some of them, admittedly, are shorter than others because I didn't experience that much. So I am honest with what I experienced and the impact that the location had on me. So my hope is that as you're reading it, my words paint the picture and paint the emotions that's going on as you're reading these experiences. And it also has the history of my podcast shows. And it has, so the paranormal book has the history of the energy that surrounds us, which is my Tuesday night podcast, and Paranormal Versus, which is a podcast that Kel Ridley in the UK and I set up to. Originally, we were like hoping to do a UK versus USA, investigation styles comparisons.
Yeah.
But we ended up finding out that they were virtually the same. And so we go into like conspiracy theories sometimes or other topics that some paranormal investigators don't go into, and we just if we're interested in it, we talk about it. And we had a paranormal investigator join our crew this year, Enoch, or wait, I think it's pronounced Enoch, but he goes by the letter E. And So it's been a pleasure with having him along. And so I just am so grateful and just share my experiences because I've reached the point in my life to where if you had asked me like 5 years ago, hey, you should write a book about your story, I'd be like, no, nobody's going to want to read my story. Nobody's going to care. And now it's like I got drawn to write the story, but then I got in my head a little bit about it and realized, not everybody wants to know everything about everything.
Right.
So I broke my story into 4 parts. So the first part that came out was the paranormal, just because I had more written on that and it was pretty much ready. So I decided to publish that one first. The next one is my hidden journey of discovery of programs that I've been a part of that I have got memory of. And I've had readings where people have told me I've been a part of stuff, and I don't necessarily include that because I want it to be authentically my journey and
Yours.
my story. So if I don't have memory of it, I don't include it. And this one, I actually have some illustrations to kind of help paint the picture of what I'm trying to convey in my words. And so hopefully that'll go over well. And another book that I wrote was my metaphysical side, growing up with the metaphysics and what I learned from that. And then the fourth one is just a basic, this is my story. This is where I've traveled. This is what, life was like for me. And so my hope is, as you find, something that interests you, maybe if I've had a similar interest in that, you'll gravitate towards the book that's right for you. So if you're a paranormal investigator, you might enjoy reading the paranormal versus reading the metaphysical side. So
Right.
hopefully, there's a book for everyone, hopefully coming.
Well, maybe you'll have some more on the horizon. And how can people that are watching support you?
Wow, that's a good question. So on my YouTube channel and Rumble channel and on my website, I have a PayPal link. So if you want to donate, because being a podcaster, I don't get paid for the shows that I'm doing. So it's all being done out of the kindness of my heart, so to speak, and my joy of just sharing my wanting to learn and experience everything. So if you feel inclined to donate however much you feel drawn to, everything is appreciated and grateful for. The link is there. You can find it. And if you can't find it, you can find me on Facebook under Michael Kopf. It'll have my face as the profile picture. So you should have no problems finding me. And message me, and I'll put you in touch with the links or put you in touch with episodes. And if you want to be a guest on my shows, just message me and we'll see about getting you scheduled for season 4.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. And so I will also have whatever links you want in the description below. So your Linktree, and if you'd like your PayPal as well, and any other links you want in there. The Linktree has almost everything on there. So I think it's really well done. So maybe that's the best one to put up there. And there's also going to be a link if you'd like to support my channel because I'm new. This is Miss Loisel, Miss_Loisel. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, Rumble, Facebook, wherever. And thanks so much for joining. Any last words, Michael?
Um, last words I would say for the collective would be remember no matter what's going on, there's always hope and there's always that spark within you. Nothing can diminish that except yourself. So keep in mind, if you want to change your circumstances, it's all a choice. And so make the choice that's right for you. And just remember, choice and change are interchangeable in the way of saying when you make one choice and you don't like it, you can always change it to another choice until you find the one you like. And if that ever changes, then you're at choice to change it. So
Free will.
just keep that in mind. And the other thing I would say is welcome to the podcast world, Miss Loisel.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, audience, for being here. We appreciate you all, and more to come soon. Bye for now.